In the vast history of art, some names shine like shooting stars, brilliant, yet fleeting. Amedeo Modigliani was one of them. His life was short, his career was turbulent, and his death was tragic. But in just 35 years, he created some of the most hauntingly beautiful portraits and sculptures in modern art. Modigliani's elongated figures, melancholic eyes, and striking simplicity have become instantly recognizable. His art captures a rare combination of elegance, mystery, and sadness, perhaps reflecting the very soul of the man behind the canvas. But who was Amedeo Modigliani? What fueled his passion for art, his rebellious nature, and his self-destructive path? And why is he now considered one of the most important artists of the 20th century, despite being nearly forgotten in his lifetime? To understand Modigliani, we must first step into the world he was born into, a world filled with beauty, struggle, and tragedy. A bohemian childhood in Italy. Amedeo Modigliani was born on July 12, 1884, in Livorno, Italy, into a family of mixed heritage. His father was a Jewish businessman, and his mother came from a wealthy, intellectual French-Jewish background. But despite their aristocratic roots, the Modigliani family was struggling financially by the time Amedeo was born. From an early age, Modigliani was different. He was intelligent, sensitive, and deeply fascinated by art. His mother, Eugenia, recognized his talent and encouraged him to pursue painting. But Modigliani's childhood was marked by illness. He suffered from pleurisy, typhoid fever, and later, tuberculosis, a disease that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Despite his frail health, he was passionate about art. At just 14, he enrolled in the School of Fine Arts in Livorno, where he immersed himself in classical studies. He was particularly drawn to Renaissance masters like Botticelli and Michelangelo, who would later influence his distinctive style. But Modigliani was restless. He wanted more. He wanted to see the world beyond Italy. In 1906, at the age of 22, he left for the one place every aspiring artist dreamed of, Paris. The wild years in Montmartre. Paris in the early 20th century was the beating heart of the art world. It was the era of Picasso, Matisse, and the rise of modernism. When Modigliani arrived, he settled in Montmartre, the bohemian quarter known for its artists, poets, and free-spirited lifestyle. He quickly fell into the wild, chaotic life of the Parisian Avant-Garde. He was charismatic, handsome, and utterly unconventional. He drank excessively, used drugs, and lived in extreme poverty. Yet, despite his reckless lifestyle, he remained fiercely dedicated to his art. Modigliani's early work showed the influence of Cézanne, Toulouse-Lautrec, and African sculpture. But it wasn't until he abandoned conventional painting techniques and embraced his unique style that he found his true voice. His portraits were unlike anything seen before. The faces were elongated, the neck stretched, the eyes often left blank. Deep, hollow pools that seemed to hold the weight of human emotion. He had a gift for capturing the essence of his subjects, revealing their vulnerability, their sadness, their soul. He painted fellow artists, writers, and lovers. But despite his growing reputation in artistic circles, he remained poor. He rarely sold his work, often trading paintings for food, drinks, or a place to sleep. One of his closest friends was the Romanian sculptor Constantine Brancusi. Inspired by Brancusi's minimalist approach, Modigliani briefly turned to sculpture, creating hauntingly beautiful stone heads with the same elongated elegance as his paintings. But sculpting was physically demanding, and Modigliani's fragile health made it impossible to continue. He returned to painting, but with even greater intensity. And then, he met the woman who would change his life forever. Jeanne Hébuterne, Love and Tragedy. In 1917, Modigliani met Jeanne Hébuterne, a young art student with striking beauty and quiet grace. She was 19, he was 33. Despite opposition from her conservative Catholic family, Jeanne fell deeply in love with Modigliani. She became his muse, his lover, and the subject of some of his most beautiful paintings. In Jeanne, Modigliani found not just inspiration, but a sense of peace, however fleeting. But their love story was overshadowed by hardship. Modigliani's health was worsening, his drinking had spiraled out of control, and the couple lived in constant poverty. Jeanne became pregnant, and in 1918, they had a daughter, also named Jeanne. Despite his declining health, Modigliani continued painting, but his body was failing him. Tuberculosis, worsened by years of alcohol and malnutrition, was taking its toll. On January 24, 1920, Amedeo Modigliani died in a tiny apartment in Paris. He was just 35 years old. 2 days later, in an act of unbearable grief, Jeanne Hébuterne, 9 months pregnant with their second child, threw herself from a window, ending her life at the age of 21. Their tragic deaths shocked the Parisian art world. Modigliani was buried in Père Lachaise Cemetery, and Jeanne was buried separately, as her family initially refused to have her rest beside him. It was only years later that their remains were reunited. The posthumous rise to fame. Modigliani died in poverty, believing himself a failure. But in a cruel twist of fate, just months after his death, his paintings skyrocketed in value. Collectors who had ignored him in life now fought over his work. Today, Modigliani is considered one of the greatest modern artists of all time. His paintings sell for hundreds of millions of dollars, and his unique style is celebrated worldwide. In 2015, one of his reclining nudes, Nu Couche, sold for $170 million, one of the highest prices ever paid for a painting. The same artist who once traded his work for a bottle of wine is now revered as a genius. The Modigliani legacy. What makes Modigliani's art so powerful? Perhaps it is the deep emotion behind every stroke. His paintings are more than just portraits. They are windows into the human soul. His work embodies elegance and sorrow, beauty and pain. Every elongated figure, every empty-eyed gaze, seems to whisper a silent story. Modigliani's influence extends beyond art. His life has inspired novels, films, and endless fascination. He has become a symbol of the tortured artist, driven by passion, consumed by his demons, and unrecognized in his time. But beyond the tragedy, there is the art. And art is immortal. Modigliani may have left this world too soon, but his vision endures. His paintings continue to captivate, to move, to inspire. And in the end, that is the true measure of an artist, not how they lived, but how their work continues to live on. The eternal artist. Amedeo Modigliani lived fast, loved deeply, and burned out far too soon. His life was filled with suffering, but his art was filled with beauty. Perhaps that is why his paintings resonate so deeply. They remind us of the fragility of life, the intensity of love, and the power of artistic expression. And so, the next time you see a Modigliani portrait, pause. Look into those elongated faces, those vacant eyes. See the soul within. Because in that moment, you are not just looking at a painting. You are looking at Amedeo Modigliani himself.